Has anybody seen the movie American Sniper in here? Anybody? But me? Am I the only one? Oh, okay. Thank you. Thank you, the four people on this side. For those of you that haven't seen it, it's about a sniper. Go figure. He is American, as a matter of fact. And now you know exactly what the movie's about. But he he comes back and forth, going on tours in Iraq and um, coming back to the United States. And there's this um, dynamic conflict between he and his wife. Every time he comes back, he just kind of has this glazed over look on his face where he doesn't seem present. He's not really there. And his wife's like, I just want you to be back. I don't want your, like you're here and I can touch you and I can see you, but you're not actually here. Like you're somewhere else. And you can see it like in his mind, the way they portrayed it. I think they did a good job. He's obviously somewhere else. His mind isn't present with his body. His heart isn't present. Not necessarily. I mean, the physical, obviously, but not the spirit. His thoughts are elsewhere. His essence, if you want to call it that, is somewhere else. And I think there's a good picture that displays that we see throughout the scriptures, and especially in the New Testament, not necessarily the Old Testament so much, but especially in the writings of Paul. This idea that you can be somewhere and not actually be present. And I wonder um, if God thinks the same thing of us. I created this meme this morning, first meme I ever made. Oops. Uh, there's supposed to be like text that comes up across here, I guess, but it's like, what does God think of us? What is God thinking that we're here, with God, but we're not actually present? Does this communicator make sense? Oh, there we go. How do we look in God's eyes? I don't know how that didn't show up. But does God see us as being here actually, or just here in body? Are we with him? And initially, before I made this meme, I was going to put a picture of a guy like sleeping in the church building, but it's not exactly what I'm going for. It's not just, when we show up in a church activity are we present, but are we present with God continually? Are my thoughts with God when I'm living my life, or am I constantly looking to the world's stuff? Is my mind there all the time? Am I only thinking about the world's stuff when my heart is supposed to belong to God? And though I act like I love God and I say that I love God and I, want to love God, that my mind is present somewhere else. I wonder if that's how God sees us sometimes. I mean, I know it is. I know it is for me. I know this is how my life is sometimes. That I say I'm with God, but actually where my thoughts are is somewhere else. I'm thinking about other things that don't help me get closer to God, that aren't even remotely similar to the things that God would want me to have or want or think or be or do. And I think this is kind of where Paul is in 2 Corinthians chapter 5. If you want to turn there. There's a lot of context here that I am usually talking about when I reference this text, but this one verse here, verse 6, he says, "Therefore, being always of good courage, and knowing that while we are at home in the body, we are absent from the Lord. We walk by faith and not by sight. We're of good courage, and I say, and prefer rather to be absent from the body and to be at home with the Lord." This whole context, if you back up and read chapter 4 and chapter 5, Paul's talking about how there's some things that seem real that aren't real. And the things that are temporary, these are the worldly things, the stuff that we get wrapped up in that just is going to burn up one day. And he's like, it's the things that you can't see that are actually real, that actually matter, that actually make a difference. And when we're striving for those things, we're looking for a permanent dwelling place. You know, a building that's from God. He says, we live in this tent. Anybody want to live in a tent? I set up a tent in the backyard a couple of days ago, and it rained every single night since the tent has been in the backyard. Did you guys see that on the way by, the tent in the backyard? Didn't notice. Man, it's too much junk around it to notice. But, you know, it's not comfortable. It's not intended to be permanent. It's a temporary dwelling for a time. And there's a funny joke about camping. It's like, I'm going to pay a lot of money to pretend like I'm homeless for a weekend. Go camping. But the idea Paul is getting at here is, and I think this is clear in the life of Jesus too, that my permanence here was never intended. Like this place was always supposed to be transitory. It was always supposed to be temporary. I'm always supposed to see myself as just going through for somewhere else. And when my mentality is like that, then I can see the things that happen here in the right perspective. But when I'm stuck on the things here, when everything here is so important and everything here really matters to me, it gets to feeling like these things are the most important things. These are the real things that have to be taken care of. And those far off in the future, other things really aren't as important. And Jesus, you know, in this Matthew chapter 6 passage, where he says, store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, not treasures on earth. I always wondered about that, and I kind of thought it meant like doing good things for other people. You know, because before that, he says, don't do your good deeds to be seen by men. Store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. I'm like, oh, well, clearly, you know, if I do nice things for the people, that stores up for me treasures in heaven. But I don't really think that's how it works. I think Paul was constantly thinking of treasure. In Paul's mind, where he's like, I would much rather not be here in this body because I want to be there with God. But I'm here, but I'm not actually here. My body's here and I'm stuck inside of it, but I'm somewhere else. My spirit, my heart, my desires, everything about me wants to be somewhere else. And I think we're kind of in an opposite scenario to Paul a lot of times. We're like, well, I'm with God. You know, I'm a Christian. I'm a believer. I follow God. But really, what I really want is the things that everybody else wants when they live in this world. The contentment that everyone else is striving for here. And I'm really, you know, at the core of my being, not what I think I am. I read a little article that was kind of interesting. It was talking about why do people like things? And you know, if you ask that question, why do you like stuff? I was thinking about this. Like, you know, I like some things that other people think are absolutely abhorrent. And Shondell likes cilantro. So there's other people that like things that are abhorrent too, you know. But why is it? Like, why do I like hunting? Why is it that killing animals is something that I enjoy? And some people would think I'm a monster for that. Why do we prefer certain things? How is it that we choose to want certain things? Why is it that our lives are prioritized the way they are? And that's really the answer that this article kind of proposed, was that, you know, we're establishing categories of value in our minds constantly for everything we think of. And I'm ranking things in importance in my mind. And the things that I like are the things that I think are important. And the things that I don't like are things that are definitely not important. If you leave out the cilantro, I'm not going to be sad. It's not important to me. The other people might think it ruins the whole thing. It is possible. It's possible. I'm not going to discount the possibility of that. But we're unknowingly, and probably for some other reasons that we don't know and can't explain, establishing value on things. Why do we do that? Why are certain things so valuable to us and other things not valuable? Why would you die for some things, but other things you could care less? And why would someone else die for that thing that you could care less about? Now, shouldn't we all have a similar way of thinking about things? Maybe it's ignorance, and I think that's the common, widespread answer for everything. If you just educate people, they'll make the right choice. Did you say no? It doesn't work? Man. But that's the only thing we've got in our culture is like they just didn't know. That's the only possibility. If they had known, they would have chose the right thing. And in reading, there was another book I read several years ago, and the author said, every smoker knows that smoking takes time off their life. It's just what happens, and they don't care. You could tell them, do you know that smoking's bad for you? Every one of them's like, of course I know that. Everybody knows that. Telling people that, writing a Surgeon General warning doesn't change anything about it. They don't care. Well, we also do other things that we just know. We know, and we don't care. Why do we choose those? Why is that a thing? Why do we value the things that we value? And the question is, why are these earthly things so valuable in the minds of Christians? It's very obvious why they're valuable in the minds of everybody. But there's a change that Jesus instituted. He comes in and he's the king of the universe and he's made and owns everything. And then he lives as a homeless person. He just goes around and stays with random people and takes help from whoever will give it to him and owns nothing and aspires to no great worldly thing. And accomplishes the most amazing thing that's ever been accomplished in the world. And is remembered more than any other human being will ever be. But for some reason, we know we're supposed to follow his example. We just don't want to. Well, that's actually really hard to follow. And I'm not saying that, the only way to follow Jesus is to be a homeless preacher. I don't think that's the only way. I think it's possible to follow Jesus and do other things too. But I think Paul has it figured out when he says, I don't want to be here. What I really want is to be out of this body. I want to be out of this body. And I want to be with God. I want to be there. But since I'm stuck here, I'm going to make every effort while I'm stuck here in this body to still be pleasing to him. Because what I really want is just to be with him. You don't see that from your Joel Osteen preaching. It's a little bit more different, don't you think? And we don't see that from a lot of contemporary wisdom either. It's what's best for me now and what's best for me later. But not, do you want to be with God? The question is, how are we supposed to store up these treasures? Like, how do I store up treasure in heaven? How am I supposed to do that? Like, I used to think it was good deeds. I don't think that's how it works anymore. What I think now is the end verse, Matthew 6:21. He says, where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And if you flip it, it makes the understanding a little bit easier. Where your heart is, there your treasure will be also. Paul says, I don't want to be here. I want to be with God. I want to be in the presence of God. I want to just experience the awesome fullness of being allowed in. To see Him and to just converse with Him in a face-to-face human type way. Maybe that's what it's like, possibly. But he's like, that's all I really care about. And I'm
I'm
consumed with
consumed with
thoughts of
thoughts
God. I
of God. I
want to be
want
in
to
the
be in the
presence of God.
presence of
This
God. This
body is such
body
a
is such a
hindrance to
hindrance
me.
to me.
It keeps
It
me
keeps
away
me
from
away
it.
from it.
I want to get
I want to
out
get
of it
out
so
of
that I
it so that
can
I
be
can
there
be
with
there
Him.
with Him.
Where's
Where's
Paul's
Paul's
treasure?
treasure?
He's not trying to. And this is funny, because there's so much like missionology, right? Paul's not over here like, all right, we can reach the most people if we do, and if we establish this program and all these things and all these people wrapped up into it, and we could really reach the most people. Paul's like, I just want to be with God. His desire to be with God allowed him to do things that other people couldn't do because he didn't care if they killed him for it. It's like, this is a great deal. Go ahead and kill me so that I can go. That's what I want. He's like, I can't do it to myself, but if you do it, it's okay. Please send me to God. That's where I want to go. His treasure wasn't here. I think this is what it means to store up treasures in heaven. Like, value the things that are there. Make those your treasure. And that's where your heart will be. Because the things that you treasure are the things that your heart, clings to. How do we store up treasures in heaven? Like, what does that look like, practically speaking? Like, I have to evaluate, my categories in life and say, what is this really what I value? Are the things that I act like I value actually the things that I value? Do I really value these things? Is this really that important to me? Or is it something that's just kind of built itself up a place in my heart that I don't really think it owns? Because I think we can unintentionally do that. I think sometimes we just get caught up in things. You ever unintentionally, or well, let me rephrase this. You ever look back at a picture of yourself and say, "Why did I wear that?" Sometimes you just get caught up in things, right? It's like, I didn't intend to look like an idiot. I just got caught up in things. This is what everyone else was wearing, and I, to my shame, really wanted to own a pair of those giant Jinko pants that 10 of you remember. Well, 4 of you remember. Yeah, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. maybe. Well, Tara remembers. You remember the Jinkos, yeah. Hideous. Steve remembers. You're old. Oh, you are old enough. Yeah, you just seem younger. I don't know. Those are terrible, terrible pants. If you watch Pay It Forward, like I referenced on Wednesday night, the bad guys in that show are wearing Jinko pants from 1999. Terrible. I don't know why we get caught up in these things, though. We're just not paying attention. We have these lapses of judgment where our commitment. That's the proper face when you see those pants. Oh, horrible. Have you seen them? Just did, yeah. Alex Xavier, would you mind? What's that? JNCO. It would be hard to spell. Yeah, but oh, did you find them? I told you, lack of judgment. Okay, now that we've all seen this, we can move on. Oh, what's that? Yeah, maybe. That's probably would have happened. Would have changed my life, actually. I thought so at the age of 13. Really did. Okay. Maybe it's judgment. Maybe it's distraction. Maybe it's just easy because everyone else is saying, this is really important. You should do the same thing as me because I think it's important. And maybe you had a guidance counselor that said, this is what's important. Maybe your teachers in school, or maybe your parents. Maybe everybody in your whole life said you should be an engineer. Maybe. I don't know. You know. Maybe you just never thought about it because we just kind of go with the flow sometimes. We go through life and we just do things. And then we think about later, why did I do that? Why did I even do that? I didn't even want to do that. I had no plans for doing that. Why did I do this? Paul's intention was to please God. If that's my intention, then the things that I do are going to be different. It's just going to shape them differently. You know, I might do similar things. I might have the same job. There's nothing wrong with being an engineer. It's a good job. For some people, you know, if you don't like talking to people and stuff. But, you know, where's my heart in the midst of this? I think there's sufficient, New Testament backing for the idea that you can even be a slave and have your heart be somewhere completely else. Completely else? Somewhere else. Okay? You know, you can be serving an evil warlord as a slave and be serving God because your heart is there instead of here. I think it's all in what you want. What do you want? Maybe you don't know what you want. A lot of people have no idea what they want. If you ask them, what do you want? They're like, I don't know what I want. Something. I want something. I don't know what it is. Some people don't even want a latte. I'm not talking about you. Sorry, I mean, Ainsley didn't want it either. She already had coffee, see? Tara didn't want one either. It's not just you. Sorry. Again, everything points back to Tori. Sorry, but you know, this idea that the world answers the question for me is wrong. And a lot of times it does. You know, we've got these influential or influenceable young people that, you know, they graduate high school and the commencement speaker says, you could do whatever you want. Follow your heart and your dreams and you'll be amazing and blah, blah, all these things. And they're like, tell me what I want. Because I don't know. And the world's like, I'll tell you what you want. You want what I have to sell. You want this. This is exactly what you want. I mean, why did these movements get so powerful? Like, so many people just have no idea that they'll just take anybody's suggestion and make it their life. And this is the challenge. Hey, bud. Hey. You know, for a parent, my kids, everybody's going to be telling them what they need to want. And that's like the entire scheme of marketing is try to tell people what they want and convince them that they want what you have. And that's what you need. Really, it's very important that you need this. And there's like, I don't even know, I can't even imagine how much money is spent and made on this alone. Telling people they need what they have or you need what they have. And if I'm as easily influenced as the average person, I'll just buy it. Without ever thinking. Maybe it's not even what I want. So we're going to come back in a few minutes and answer this question. Like, what do you want? So let's take a break and we'll be right back.